Hi there, today I'm going to go back to an old favourite. The Commodore 64 is fired up for my first Commodore 64 game review since I finished the Mastertronic Chronicles some 4 months ago. And this is actually going to be 3 game reviews for the price of 1 because I'm going to be looking at some budget compilations which usually feature 3 or 4 games, and the first of those that I'm going to take a look at is Alternative Software's Triple Decker 8, which features 3 games. We'll take a look at those games in a moment. Let's give you some stats about this compilation. Triple Decker 8 was released in 1988. It's a PAL game released in the UK by Alternative Software, and all 3 games on this compilation were developed by Mr. Chip Software, which is why I've got particular interest in them, as they're one of my favourite developers from the Mastertronic Chronicles series of reviews. The price I paid for this compilation was £3.99, which is actually twice as much as it was originally cost back in the day. And the going rate on eBay for this at the moment is between £6 to £10, but you may not find it under the description of Triple Decker 8. If you search for Super Snake Simulator, which is one of the 3 games on the compilation, you will find a couple of items on eBay right now if you look for that game. So the games are, as I've just said, Super Snake Simulator, which I suspect might have been taking the mickey a little bit out of the Codemasters simulator games. There's also Fearless Fred and the Factory of Doom and Project X. So let's take a look at those 3 games now. While the first game's loading, let's take a look at the packaging for this Triple Decker 8. So you can see the Alternative Software logo in the top left there, and Super Snake Simulator. That's a sort of feature game of this trilogy of games. You can see a big evil looking cobra on there, which to be honest has got nothing to do with the game at all. The other 2 games on this compilation, Project X and Fearless Fred, and they both have a more cartoony style graphic associated with them. There's that Triple Decker logo, and you can also see down in that corner there that this is part of a £1.99 range. So it was £1.99 for 3 games, which straight away seems pretty reasonable. And the spine's got the Triple Decker 8 logo and Super Snake Simulator mentioned on it as well. And the back cover again says Triple Decker on it, big orange background, and it's got screenshots from each of the 3 games. One from Project X, one from Super Snake Simulator, and one from Fearless Fred. Can't see a lot on those really, but we'll be looking at the games in a moment or two anyway. Inside the inlay on this psychedelic orange background, we've got the Triple Decker logo again, and the loading instructions for the game, and then basically just the instructions for each of the games. So there's the instructions for Super Snake Simulator with the controls. There's the instructions for Fearless Fred and the Factory of Doom to give it its full title. And the controls again, and the controls and the game instructions for Project X, which you can see there, they overlap onto the inside of the inlay, which is a more easy to read white. Again, that covers all the games, got some copyright information, and a little blurb there. Programmers, if you've written a good program for any home computer, send it to us now for evaluation. We pay excellent royalties. And it says there, your program could be in the shops within 3 weeks. That's quite an impressive turnaround for Alternative Software, who of course don't actually exist anymore. The rest of the inlay is foreign language instructions, and that's it. So here we have the title screen for the first game, which is Super Snake Simulator. As you can see, written by Sean Southern, graphics by Andrew Morris. They're 2 of the main players in Mr. Chip Software, and you can see the copyright there, Mr. Chip Software 1988. Nice graphic of a snake on a checkerboard kind of playing surface there at the top there, and you've also got the score readout and the other various bits and pieces that tell you about each stage across the bottom there. That's pretty much it. Pretty simple presentation. Pretty nice music in the background with a bit of an Egyptian sort of theme to it, as you might expect with a game about snakes. So let's get on with the game itself. And level 1 is called Nice and Easy, and yes, as you've probably already guessed, it's a snake game. So the idea is to go around the level and pick up the numbered squares. They then increase the length of your snake, which is there at the bottom of the screen. You've got a target length on each level, which on this level is 20. Also you can see some enemies dotting around the screen. When you hit them, as I just did, it speeds the snake up, so you don't want to hit them unless you can avoid it. Can't avoid it, I should say. A question mark increases the length of the snake by an undetermined length. Oh, and I've crashed into myself. That's not very good. The controls are a little bit unusual, shall we say, in that you have to kind of press the direction you want to go just before you want to turn. So sometimes you can turn a little bit wrongly, and there you go, that's the end of the first stage. So you can turn a little bit wrongly and then you have to correct yourself. Also, using the joystick, it's a little bit imprecise sometimes with an 8-way joystick. Sometimes you'll kind of drag the joystick into the wrong position and double back on yourself, which is what happened to me on the first stage. And that's pretty much it for the game. You can't crash into the sides of the screen. It doesn't wrap around. There are also power-ups that you can collect if power-up is the right word. That's the second stage completed, which means that sometimes you can get ones that extend the snake by as long as it needs to do to complete the stage. There's one that slows the snake down, there's one that finishes the stage immediately, and there's the one that's just the bonus score. This is an extra life, I think, yeah. And the G is the one that grows the snake to the length that completes the level, as you can see, because I've just done that. A lot of the times the boxes appear at the very edges of the screen, which makes it particularly tricky. That was handy. Missed the extra life there. This level's as good as over already. There you go, level completed. Sometimes it's very easy, you'll get lots of high value blocks, other times not so easy. So the graphics are quite nice, they're pretty basic, it's a game of Snake after all. The movement of the snake's quite cool, he does kind of slither around, especially when he goes around the corners. The backgrounds are pretty bland, but they're nicely done, sort of like waffle type effect for want of a better expression. And they do change colour from one level to the next, as does the snake. So I'm going along pretty nicely here at the moment. The levels do get more difficult as they start to put obstacles in your path. Whoa. Got to get a length of 35 here, which is going to be pretty chaotic. Oh, I missed it. Yes, yeah, sort of this bit where you've got to... Oh, that was close. Where you've got to get the turns just right, just in the right time. Sometimes it means you do miss the objects that you're trying to collect. But it's a nice, simple game, easy to pick up, quite addictive. Oh, I managed to avoid it. See, that's quite unfair because you materialise heading straight towards this big one in the middle of the screen, which, if you crash into it, you die. And the bigger the snake gets, the more difficult it gets to get around this thing. Oh, I don't know how I managed to survive then. Oh! There you go, see, crashed into the one. Yeah, this one's quite tricky. The good news on this one is the snake does go a little bit, excuse me, slower than it has done on some of the earlier levels. Oh, I could really do with that F because that allows me to complete the stage. Oh, it's going quite badly now. Ah! It's gone from being a good game to a terrible game in like a matter of seconds. And I've only got one life left now. Oh, if we could get that G, that'd be handy. Oh, just missed it. I'm gonna miss this F as well, I imagine. Yep. Everything's appearing right at the edges of the level. The music, the speed of the music, oh, that was just ridiculous, that was garbage. I was just going to say the music speeds up as the level progresses and the snake gets bigger and bigger just to make it a little bit more panic inducing. I'll play through again, trying to get the stage again and get a little bit further. Here I am then back on this level. level 7, which has this big number 1 in the middle of it. So I'm going to try and complete the stage, but already it's making it quite difficult for me, putting the collectible items right close to the edges of the screen, or the big number 1 in the middle. I will do my best. And there we go, did it first time. It's on to level 8, which is called No Rest for the Wicked. Pretty straightforward screen, nothing to block your route around the screen, but I have got to get a length of snake of 40, which is pretty challenging on a screen this size. A lot of going backwards and forwards is likely on this particular level. It's going pretty well so far. Just to mention for the music while I'm moving around the screen, it's pretty basic stuff. The whole game is very sort of typical of a Sean Southern game. The style of the graphics, the information across the bottom of the screen with the score and everything, and oh, that's annoying, I was so close to the end there. And the music as well, it's kind of simplistic but also quite catchy. It does, as the game goes through, get faster, the music, as each stage goes through, adding to the sort of panic levels of the game. Oh, that S, by the way, slows you down, which is kind of useful. I'm not sure if I mentioned that already. So only a smallish number of segments required. This is going to require an entire lap around the screen again to get back to. And there we go, on to the next stage, which is called Surprise Surprise. And this is really annoying because it basically you materialise and fly straight into the edge of the screen unless you react quickly enough. You actually have to push up or down before the screen even comes on to have any chance of escaping. And otherwise it's more of the same. You can see it's a pretty straightforward game. It's Snake. The main differences are you've got these enemies going around the screen which speed you up if you hit them. Different numbers of things to collect, power-ups, and obviously the obstacles in the middle of the screen add to the difficulty somewhat. But all in all, it's a pretty good game, fairly addictive, pretty challenging as you've already seen, probably impossible at certain stages. What do I need? Another 4. That's another stage completed. I think that's the first time I've completed that stage actually, so I don't know what I'm going to get today. Oh dear, that is a very vivid green grid. That's a useful look. That's a G, which basically just lets me keep growing until I complete the stage now. Handy. A broken ring. Ah! Oh, I managed to get out of that somehow. I thought I was going to hit the bottom of the screen there. So now we've got a circle in the middle of the screen, which I knew this was going to happen. You've got to actually make your way through at certain times. This is going to be particularly hard. Couple of lives left, so I'll give it a go. But this could be the end. This game alone is probably worth $1.99. I've played a lot of Mastertronic games that were far worse than that. That's completed the stage, which is kind of useful. And this one's just gone back to being a normal stage, except now I need a length of 45, which is insanely long, especially if you crash straight into the side from the beginning. So one more go at this. As I was saying, I think this game is probably worth the asking price, as was. Played a lot of Mastertronic games for $1.99 price point back in the Mastertronic Chronicles days, which were far worse than this. It's not the most original game in the world, obviously, but anyone who had a Nokia 3310 or whatever it was called back in the day would have played Snake, as that was pretty much the only mobile game you had at that point in time. So this might be happy memories for the people that own that particular mobile phone. Crikey, that slow down would have been useful. Another 5 required. Oh, done it. Still got 1 life left. Oh, this looks impossible now. That's an extra life, which is always handy. That's just impossible. The timing's got to be absolutely impeccable on this level. and mine wasn't, and that's game over. We got a good idea about the game. Got quite a nice high score of 933 there. Pretty good stuff so far. Let's load up the next game, which will be Fearless Fred and the Factory of Doom. Here's game number 2 then, Fearless Fred and the Factory of Doom. This was originally released in 1986 on the Americana label, which was a sub-label of Mastertronic. I didn't review it for the Mastertronic Chronicles, for reasons that you can go back and view those videos for if you wish to. It's by Tony Kelly for Mr. Chip Software. You can see his name there on the high score table. He did a number of games for the Commodore 64 for Mastertronic and other labels as well. And this one will be particularly familiar to anyone who's a fan of another Tony Kelly game which was published by Mastertronic. You'll see that soon enough. So let's get on with the game. First of all, you have to press J. It's a bit of a convoluted way to get into the game. Press J to choose joystick and then press return to actually start the game. The music fades out. Music was pretty terrible, to be honest. And then you can put your name in, or you can keep the name that's there. We don't want to name it Peter Hangover, so I'll just put my name in instead. Press return, and then you go to the first stage. And if you look back on my Mastertronic videos, you'll see a review of a game which I rated very highly, which is called Big Mac the Mad Maintenance Man. This game almost certainly uses some of the very same sprites, not least the main character, although he is a different colour. And that was a similar style of game. It's a single screen platform puzzle style game. In that game you had to make your way to the exit of each screen by activating a number of levers. This game, basically you have to collect these little bouncing objects, which is described in the instructions as coins. I'm not too sure about that. So that was the first stage completely. There is quite a strict time limit on each stage, so there won't be much dawdling about for me. Those switches I was talking about in Big Mac, they make an appearance during this game as well. You can see the switches there. They operate in the same way, you just walk over them, which makes them equally as easy to switch off as they are to switch on. There's no up or down on this game, it's purely left, right and jump. And so when you see that little rope going up and down, that black rope there, you have to use the jump button to get up and down that. So there's another lever here which disables this section here. You can see me now dropping down the screen. Hopefully I'll time this right. Nope, there goes a life. That was a disaster. Let's try again. I was going to say the first few stages are relatively easy. This one's already proven not to be, with a bit of poor timing. So as I said, to get up these little ropes you kind of just keep the jump button held down. Switch the levers off, remove that plunger thing, and what I'm going to do this time as this floor collapses is just jump up and down a couple of times at this end, which allows me to then safely drop down without getting hit by this disc. This disc, by the way, moves faster one way than the other, which is a rather tricky, devious thing. I'm just waiting for the rope to come down on the far right hand side of the screen, that's why I keep jumping over that, and it should come down just in time for me to jump up and avoid the disc thing. Get to the top of the screen. As you can see, the time's nearly run out. Just collect the coins. Up on the top there you've got your score, number of coins remaining to collect, and the time limit. The crosses there are your lives. This level I'm going to show you how not to play it first of all. First thing is, you don't want to press this switch because that makes that thing there, the pink thing, come across and get rid of half the coins, which is not a good thing. And if you flick this switch you get some platforms. These platforms disintegrate pretty quickly. I'll just quickly demonstrate what I'm doing here. And once you fall down you lose a life. So while you could fall quite far on earlier stages, on this one you can't. So basically you've got to make your way from the bottom of the row of coins to the top and not miss any, which is easier said than done, trust me. So it's a case of get to this end of the second platform, jump up to the top, then walk all the way along. Got to make sure you don't make contact with either of those baddies at the end of this row here, but I've got to collect the last coin and then jump up. I seem to have managed it, luckily. Then you walk all the way back, somewhat tediously, time's ticking away as well. Collect the last coin on that row, back to the top. Your guy, Fearless Fred, doesn't move particularly quickly, so it's quite tricky to get things done quickly. That's the end of the third level, and here comes the fourth level now, and this is as far as I've got so far in practice goes. So you've got these big ostriches bobbing up and down, backwards and forwards. The white thing there is a switch. We'll come to that in a moment. I already messed that up. Got a few lives left. So graphics are typical of a Tony Kelly game for the Commodore 64. Somewhat blocky, not very high resolution. They do the job, but certainly graphics weren't his strong point. Oh, now I've activated the switch, which I didn't want to do, because what that's done is blocked off the lower part of this level. So that's another life about to be lost because I can't go anywhere now. So yeah, the graphics pretty chunky. A lot of brown and like kind of clashing colours used on the levels as well, which is not a lot of fun. But that's not really what the game is about. The game is more about the gameplay. The gameplay on this is pretty hard. Just moving these barrels out of the way. Avoid the ostrich thing. Should now be able to go and activate this switch. And that now allows me to get down to the bottom half of the stage. Which, if you thought the top half was quite tricky, the bottom half is even worse. Music, by the way, in-game is a lot less painful on the ears than the music in the opening screen. Sorry, just trying to concentrate on what I'm trying to do with all this at the moment. This bit here opens that. Oh, I've actually managed to survive that somehow. Try to see if I can jump out. No, I've messed it up again. One more try, and then that'll be game over. I don't see the need to play through again because, as I've mentioned, I've never got past this stage so far. If I manage it on this last life, I'll be incredibly surprised and fairly happy. It's a fairly challenging platformer in the sort of Manic Miner style. Not the greatest game in the world, but reasonably fun and does offer a challenge. As I've said, each level is not just a case of platforming, there is puzzling involved as well. So it's worth persevering with, perhaps not too much for the sake of this video, but I've got to the lower half of the level again. Let's see how I can get on this time. Get me timing right with the thing that's coming bobbing across there. Well, that wasn't very good timing at all. Never mind, let's just go and give it a go and see what happens. So this switch has to be activated in order to jump over this thing. And then I think I'm going to have to jump over him again. Oh, I got the timing right this time. Oh, but this is one of those annoying things where, oh, I've messed it up now, where you flick the switch and it takes away the thing that you need to get back further across the level. So that's game over, you get the idea. Reasonable sort of game, typical 8-bit 80s platformer. So I decided to come back and have another go at this level. I've already had a couple of goes and failed, so I've got a couple of lives left. Give it one more try and then that'll be it. Lots of pixel perfect jumping required on this stage, which I've not made a very good job of so far. Oh, and I've messed it up again. On to my last life. Just can't seem to get it right, and it's fair to say the difficulty level spikes somewhat dramatically in this game, which doesn't do it any favours. That said, I'm sure if you persevered you would get each level right. It's just a case of memorising things. There's a couple of points in the game also where you don't know exactly how... Oh, that's just ridiculous. What a waste of a final life. Yeah, there's a couple of points in the game where you don't know what's going to happen, and it's basically trial and error, which I'm not a fan of in games either. So in terms of game design, it's a bit flawed, but it's kind of a challenging and reasonably interesting sort of game. So that was the second game. Let's now load up the third one. So here we have game number 3. on the triple decker 8, Project X. As you can see there, it says code by Bod. Bod is actually a guy called Dirk Lee. And it says there graphics by Vic and Sid did the sound. Well, that's referring to the Vic graphics chip and the Sid sound chip on the Commodore 64. The music on this game is actually done by Tony Kelly, which links it nicely to the previous game. As far as I'm aware, Dirk Lee this is the only game he ever did for Mr. Chip Software, and when you see it, I think you'll get an idea why. There is also what's fairly much of a trademark for Mr. Chip Software, the scrolling message across the bottom of the screen there as well. But enough about that. Nice tune on the intro. Let's get on with the game. Basically, you're a kind of an agent who's got to get from one stage to another. The first stage is you're flying a biplane of some description, some kind of propeller driven plane across this landscape, quite nicely animated, nice big graphics, moves really slowly, and basically all you've got to do is get from one end of the stage to the other. You can see the distance going down there. Try and make it from one end to the other without getting destroyed. As you can see, that proved to be quite difficult. I got 43 points, didn't even get me on the high score table, unsurprisingly. And away it goes again. And there's various things you can't crash into. Don't crash into the airships, don't crash into the planes, don't let the planes shoot you, and don't let the ground-based missiles shooting up at you hit you. So basically, there's about, like, I don't know, a 10 by 10 pixel area in the screen where you can't get shot by something. And I've not found it yet, by the way, I was kind of joking there. So I'm nearly there. I might make it to the second stage if I'm lucky, or something could hit me right out of the blue. No, I have actually made it. So I made it to the end of the first stage. As you can see there, the main character's name is Hank, although on that first stage at times it looks like a slightly ruder word beginning with the letter W. And there goes that. Basically, the second stage, I didn't even get time to describe it. You've got to make your way to the top of the stage by throwing a grappling hook and moving up the platforms. Unfortunately, I mistimed the jump, fell off a platform, and it was game over. This time, however, I did at least get my name in the high score table. With a score of 85. There's a letter T in here somewhere, there we go. And away we go again. As you can see, it's quite difficult to just press fire and get back to the title screen. So I'll give it another go, since I've only spent a couple of minutes reviewing the game. You can see how easy it is to die on this level, on this whole game in fact. Basically the difficulty level is ridiculous on it. It's got some quite nice graphics, quite a nice idea of having multiple stages to go through to progress in the game, but actually progressing in the game is borderline impossible. The slightest thing hitting you runs your health down quite badly. There's a chance I might make it to the next stage here, but there's equally a chance that I won't. There we go, plane blows up, 75 points, gets me in the high score table again, but I can't be bothered to put my name in. Let's give it another go, another couple of tries. Sound's virtually non-existent, it's just splatting-y, bullety sound. The graphics are quite nice, big chunky sprites for the planes. They move around horrendously slowly, or rather the player's plane moves around horrendously slowly and the enemy planes move quite quickly and crash into you. There I go again with another failure. One more try. I want to try and get to that second stage once more, just so you can see that this guy Hank does have a grappling hook that you can use to try and grab platforms above you. Not that I've ever managed to do that, but it'd be nice to at least try and show it. There we go, it's gone again. Utter garbage. I guess you could say it does have that one more go factor, simply because one go barely seems to last any amount of time. I'm getting quite close to the end of the stage. No, I'm not. I'm nowhere near, and I've got no health left at all. See, I don't even know what I crashed into there and I died. Got my name in the high score table again with another score of 75. One more try. Seriously, one more try now. If I don't do it this time, you can just forget it. I'm getting thumb ache from holding the fire button down as well. And there I go again, no chance again. You've seen enough. I'll play one more time, honestly, just while I sum this up as one of the worst games I've ever played. Despite having some nice sound on the title screen and some nice graphics, the gameplay is borderline non-existent. It does actually consist of, I believe, 4 or 5 stages. Anyone who's ever got past this first stage and then made any progress on the second stage, I'd love to see a video of it, because I just don't understand how you can get anywhere on that game. Utter drivel. So Triple Decker 8 can be summed up as one decent game, albeit somewhat derivative, in Super Snake Simulator, one pretty decent game, fairly playable but kind of challenging, in Fearless Fred, and one nice looking, nice sounding but utterly awful game in the shape of Project X. So money wise, this cost me $3.99. It originally cost $1.99. There's little doubt that it would have been worth that sort of money. I'm not going to get rid of it because it's an interesting curiosity to have 3 Mr. Chip software games on one tape anyway. So that's the end of the review, and next time we'll be going back to something hopefully with a bit more gameplay than this last game.
If you only knew the power of the dark side.
2, 1, 0.